The princess entered unexpectedly, catching me off guard with a playful smile. The midnight intrusion. The amber glow of candlelight flickered across weathered pages as Elias Thornfield hunched over an ancient manuscript, his quill scratching methodical notes into the margins of his leather journal. The castle library stood silent around him, rows of towering shelves casting long shadows across the polished stone floor. Outside the arched windows, midnight had long since claimed the kingdom, but time held no meaning when lost in the pursuit of knowledge. He barely registered the soft creak of the massive oak doors swinging open. "So this is where you hide." The voice startled him so completely that his quill skittered across the page, leaving an ugly ink trail. Elias jerked his head up to find Princess Solara Valen standing in the doorway, backlit by torchlight from the corridor. She wore a midnight blue gown that caught the candlelight, her dark hair cascading loosely over her shoulders in a style far more casual than her usual elaborate court arrangements. What struck him most was her smile, playful, knowing, utterly different from the composed expression she wore during official functions. "Your Highness," Elias stammered, nearly knocking over his inkwell as he scrambled to stand and bow. "I apologize. I didn't hear anyone announce your arrival. If you require something from the library, I can—" "Relax, Master Thornfield." Solara crossed the space between them with unhurried grace, her fingers trailing along the spines of books as she approached. "This visit is decidedly unofficial." His pulse quickened. "Is something wrong? Does the king require urgent research?" She laughed, the sound warm and genuine. "Must there always be a crisis for me to visit my own castle's library?" Her eyes sparkled with mischief as she picked up his journal, examining his cramped handwriting. "Lord Dorian is generous with his praise," Elias managed, acutely aware of how close she stood. The faint scent of jasmine drifted from her hair. "Tell me," Solara said, setting down the journal and meeting his gaze directly, "what could possibly be so fascinating that you'd forsake sleep?" The directness of her attention left him momentarily speechless. In 3 years of service to the crown, he'd never been alone with Princess Solara, had never been the subject of that penetrating, curious stare. "I'm researching the architectural techniques of the Old Kingdom," he said, finding his voice. "The engineering principles they employed have been largely forgotten, but I believe we could—" "You're passionate about old buildings?" She leaned against his desk, her posture deliberately casual, almost challenging. "Not just buildings, Your Highness. Knowledge itself. Every forgotten technique, every lost art represents wisdom that could benefit—" "Solara." "Pardon?" "When we're alone, you may call me Solara." That playful smile deepened. "If we're to have conversations past midnight, formality seems rather unnecessary, don't you think?" Elias felt heat rise to his cheeks. "That would be highly inappropriate, Your Highness." "Then I suppose we'll have to work on your sense of propriety." She moved toward the door, but paused at the threshold, glancing back over her shoulder. "I'll return tomorrow night. Perhaps you can show me what makes these dusty old texts worth losing sleep over." Before he could protest, she disappeared into the corridor, leaving only the faint scent of jasmine and the echo of her laughter. Elias sank back into his chair, his carefully ordered world suddenly thrown into delightful chaos by a single, unexpected smile.
Secret visits and growing attraction. True to her word, Solara returned the following night. Elias heard the distinctive creak of the library doors and looked up from his work, his heart already accelerating before he even confirmed her identity. She entered wearing a deep emerald gown, simpler than her court attire, but no less striking, carrying a small leather satchel. "Good evening, Master Thornfield," she said with exaggerated formality, though her eyes danced with amusement. "Your Highness—" He caught himself at her raised eyebrow. "I cannot call you by your given name. It isn't proper." "Then we are at an impasse." She settled into the chair across from his desk, uninvited but entirely comfortable. "What are you studying tonight?" Against his better judgment, Elias found himself explaining his research on ancient water systems. Selara listened with genuine interest, asking questions that revealed a sharp, curious mind hidden beneath her royal polish. When she challenged one of his theories with a surprisingly astute observation, he forgot himself entirely and launched into an enthusiastic debate. "You're smiling," she noted suddenly. Elias touched his face, surprised. "I suppose I am." "It suits you. You should do it more often." Her gaze lingered on his features. "You're quite different when you're not being terrified of me." "I'm not terrified," he protested. "Liar." But she said it warmly. "Show me something beautiful." He hesitated, then retrieved an illuminated manuscript from a locked cabinet. As he opened it, revealing intricate illustrations of celestial maps, Selara leaned closer to examine the details. Their shoulders nearly touched. The monks who created this spent 20 years on it, each star positioned with mathematical precision, each constellation rendered with such care, Elias explained quietly. "It's extraordinary." Our voice had softened. "You see beauty where others see only information." Their eyes met, and for a breathless moment, something unspoken passed between them. Selara pulled back first, clearing her throat. "I should go before my absence is noted." The visits became routine. 3 nights, then 4, then every evening that her royal obligations permitted. They discussed philosophy, history, poetry. Selara proved herself his intellectual equal, challenging his assumptions and offering perspectives shaped by her unique position. Their conversations stretched longer each night, punctuated by shared laughter and increasingly comfortable silences. On the 7th night, Lady Mira Althwin appeared at the library door just as Selara was preparing to leave. "So this is where you disappear to?" Mira said, her knowing smile suggesting she'd suspected all along. The lady-in-waiting had been Selara's closest friend since childhood, trusted with secrets that would make the court gossips swoon. "Mira, please," Selara began. "Your secret is safe with me, Your Highness." Mira's gaze shifted to Elias with obvious appraisal. "Though I'd suggest being more careful. The night guards have begun to notice your pattern." After Selara left with her confidant, Elias tried to return to his work but found concentration impossible. The manuscript before him blurred as he replayed every word, every glance, every moment of accidental contact. "You're playing a dangerous game, my boy." Elias jumped at Lord Dorian Kestrel's voice. His mentor emerged between the shelves, his weathered face grave with concern. "Lord Dorian, I can explain." "Can you?" The older scholar sat heavily. "I've watched you these past weeks. I see how you look at her, how she looks at you." He sighed deeply. "Elias, I've known you since you were a student. Your dedication, your brilliant mind, you have a future at this court. But this could destroy everything you've built." "We're merely having intellectual discussions," he said weakly. "If that were true, you wouldn't be blushing like a schoolboy." Dorian's expression softened. "She is the crown princess. Her life isn't her own. Neither is her heart ultimately. The king will arrange her marriage to benefit the kingdom as is his duty." "I know that." "Do you? Because from where I stand, you're falling in love with someone you can never have." The words hung in the air, undeniable and painful. Elias had been avoiding that truth, but hearing it spoken aloud made it impossible to ignore. "What should I do?" he asked quietly. "End it before you both get hurt." Dorian stood up, placing a hand on Elias's shoulder. "I know it's not what you want to hear, But sometimes wisdom means protecting ourselves from our own hearts. After his mentor left, Elias stared at the manuscript pages without seeing them. End it, the logical, sensible course of action. Yet when the library doors opened the next evening and Silara appeared with that smile that made his breath catch, he knew he was already too far gone to turn back. She'd brought wine this time, and as they talked, their knees touched beneath the desk. Neither moved away.
The spring air carried the scent of night-blooming jasmine through the castle gardens. Elias followed the winding path, his heart pounding with a mixture of anticipation and apprehension. Salara's note had been brief. "Meet me in the eastern garden at midnight. Come alone, please." He found her standing beside the fountain, moonlight painting her features silver. She wore a simple white dress, her hair braided simply. Stripped of all royal pretense, she looked younger, more vulnerable. "You came," she said softly. "Did you doubt I would?" Solara shook her head, gesturing to a stone bench secluded by climbing roses. "We need to talk, really talk, not surrounded by books and the possibility of interruption." They sat, maintaining a careful distance that felt both necessary and painful. The fountain's gentle burbling filled the silence as Elias waited for her to speak. "Do you know what it's like?" Solara began, her voice barely above a whisper. "To have every moment of your life planned by others? Every smile measured, every word calculated, every friendship evaluated for a political advantage?" "I cannot imagine," Elias admitted. "When I come to the library, when I'm with you, I feel like myself. Not Princess Solara, not a diplomatic tool or a symbol of the crown. Just me." She turned to face him, vulnerability raw in her expression. "You see me, Elias, the real me. Do you understand how rare that is?" His throat tightened. "You see me too. All my life I've hidden in books, keeping people at a distance. Knowledge was safer than connection. But you—" He struggled for words. "You make me want to step out of the shadows." "Then why does this feel impossible?" Her voice cracked slightly. "Because it is impossible." The words tasted bitter. "Lady Mira was right to warn us, Lord Dorian too. You're the crown princess. I'm a scholar with no title, no lands, nothing to offer." "You offer yourself," Solara interrupted fiercely. "Your mind, your passion, your genuine nature. Those things matter to me more than all the noble titles in the kingdom. But they don't matter to the king, to the council, to the realm that needs you to make a strategic marriage." Solara's hands clenched in her lap. "I know my duty. I've known it since I was old enough to understand what being born royal meant. But I thought—" She drew a shaky breath. "I thought I could have these stolen moments. That wanting something for myself, even if only in secret, wouldn't be too much to ask." Unable to help himself, Elias reached for her hand. The contact sent electricity through his veins. Their first deliberate touch, fingers intertwining as though they'd been made to fit together. "What do you want, Solara?" His voice was rough with emotion. She looked at their joined hands, then up at his face, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "I want this. You. Us. Even knowing it's foolish and complicated and probably doomed." "That's not an answer. That's a wish." "Then perhaps I'm tired of being practical." She shifted closer, and suddenly the careful distance between them evaporated. "Perhaps I'm tired of doing what's expected instead of what my heart demands." "Your heart?" Elias breathed, scarcely daring to believe. "My heart chose you weeks ago. That first night in the library when you looked at me like I was a person instead of a crown. I've tried to be sensible. I've reminded myself daily of all the reasons this can't work, but it hasn't changed how I feel." Solara. Her name on his lips felt like a prayer and a promise. She raised her free hand to his face, fingers tracing his jawline with feather-light gentleness. "Tell me I'm not alone in this. Tell me you feel it too." "I feel it," he confessed,
his resolution crumbling. God help me, I feel everything. You've consumed my thoughts, my dreams. I've tried to focus on my work, but all I see is your smile. All I hear is your laughter. You've undone me completely. Then we're both undone. She leaned forward, her forehead resting against his. What do we do? I don't know. I only know I can't walk away from you. I should, but I can't. Don't walk away. Her breath mingled with his, their lips mere inches apart. Stay with me, even if it's just for tonight, even if tomorrow brings complications we can't solve. Stay with me now. The last thread of Elias's restraint snapped. He closed the distance between them, capturing her lips in a kiss that felt like falling and flying simultaneously. Solara responded with equal fervor, her fingers threading through his hair as his arms pulled her closer. The kiss deepened, weeks of unspoken longing pouring into that single searing connection. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Solara laughed softly, a sound of pure joy mixed with wonder. I've imagined that, she admitted, her cheeks flushed. As have I. Elias rested his forehead against hers again, though my imagination fell far short of reality. We sat in the moonlit garden, wrapped in each other's arms, stealing kisses between whispered confessions. For those precious hours, the world beyond the garden walls ceased to exist. There was no crown, no duty, no impossible future, only two hearts recognizing their match. As dawn approached, reality began to creep back in. We can't keep this secret forever, Solara said quietly, still nestled against his chest. I know. My father is already discussing potential suitors. Lord Caston from the north, Prince Aldrich from across the sea. Elias's arms tightened around her involuntarily. Don't, not yet. Let me have this moment without thinking about you belonging to someone else. I'll never belong to anyone else, Solara said fiercely, pulling back to look into his eyes. Whatever happens, whatever I must do for the kingdom, my heart is yours, Elias Thornfield. Remember that. They kissed again, tender and desperate, tasting of promises that might be impossible to keep, but feeling utterly true nonetheless.
Forbidden complications. The royal council chamber buzzed with whispered conversations as nobles filed out from the morning session. Elias stood in the library corridor, pretending to examine a scroll while his stomach churned with dread. Lord Dorian approached, his expression grave. It's been announced, his mentor said quietly. Prince Aldrich of Valoran arrives in 3 weeks. The king intends to formalize a betrothal. Elias felt the world tilt. 3 weeks. 21 days before Solara would be promised to another man, before their stolen moments would transform from secret romance to betrayal of a royal engagement. Thank you for telling me, he managed. Dorian's weathered hand gripped his shoulder. I'm sorry, my boy, truly. That evening Solara didn't come to the library, nor the next night, nor the one after that. Elias threw himself into his work with desperate intensity, but the words on the pages blurred together meaninglessly. Every creak of the door made his heart leap with hope, only to crash when someone else appeared or no one at all. On the 4th night, Lady Mira found him staring blankly at an open manuscript. She wanted to come, Mira said without preamble. The king has increased her schedule, meetings with diplomats, fittings for new gowns, lessons in Valoran customs and language. He's preparing her. I understand. The words felt hollow. Do you? Mira sat across from him, her usual playfulness replaced by somber concern. She's miserable, Master Thornfield. She goes through the motions, says the right words, smiles at appropriate moments, but I've known her since we were children. I see the grief she's hiding. Elias closed his eyes. What would you have me do? Storm the throne room and declare my feelings? I'm a scholar, with no fortune, no title. I have nothing to offer her but complications. You offer her love, Mira said simply, something precious few royal marriages contain. Love isn't enough in her world. Perhaps not, but its absence leaves a void that duty cannot fill.
She stood to leave, then paused. "She asked me to give you this." Mira placed a folded note on his desk and departed. Elias's hands trembled as he opened it. "My dearest Elias, forgive my absence. Each day grows more difficult as the reality of my situation becomes inescapable. My father means well. Prince Aldrich is by all accounts a good man, and this alliance would strengthen our kingdom's position considerably. But he is not you. I've spent these nights lying awake, trying to find a solution that doesn't exist. I am trapped between my heart and my duty, and I fear duty must ultimately prevail. The price of being born royal is that one's life is never truly one's own. I cannot ask you to wait for something impossible. You deserve happiness, a simple life with someone free to love you openly. Please don't hate me for being too weak to choose you over my kingdom. Know that you will always have my heart, even if I cannot give you my hand. Forever yours, S." The letter felt like a goodbye. Elias read it 3 times, then carefully folded it and pressed it to his chest. The logical part of his mind recognized the wisdom in her words. They had no future, and clinging to false hope would only deepen the eventual pain. But logic held no power over a heart in love. He spent the next week in a fog, mechanically completing his research duties while feeling increasingly hollow. Lord Dorian watched with worried eyes but said nothing, perhaps recognizing that some sorrows must simply be endured. Then, one evening, everything changed. Elias was organizing manuscript when he heard voices approaching the library. Solara's voice, accompanied by Lady Mira's and another woman's he didn't recognize. He started to retreat into the stacks, unwilling to face her in the presence of others, when he heard his own name. Master Thornfield's research on agricultural innovations could revolutionize our farming techniques, Solara was saying, her tone professional but with an underlying current he recognized. "Mother, I thought you might find his work valuable for your rural development initiatives." The Queen! Solara had brought the Queen to meet him. Elias emerged from the shadows, bowing deeply as Queen Lysandra entered with her daughter and Lady Mira. The Queen possessed the same intelligent eyes as Solara, though silver threaded through her dark hair and fine lines marked her face. "Your Majesty," Elias said, his voice steadier than he felt, "you honor me with your presence. Rise. Master Thornfield, my daughter speaks highly of your work." The Queen's gaze was penetrating, assessing. "Show me these agricultural techniques that have captured her interest." For the next hour, Elias explained his research, acutely aware of Solara standing nearby, her presence both comforting and agonizing. The Queen asked shrewd questions, and Elias found himself warming to the discussion despite the circumstances. "Impressive," Queen Lysandra said. "Tell me, Master Thornfield, what do you believe is the greatest challenge facing our kingdom?" The question caught him off guard. "Your Majesty, I'm merely a scholar. I'm hardly qualified to—" "Humor me." Elias glanced at Solara, who gave him an almost imperceptible nod. "I believe our greatest challenge is balancing tradition with progress. We cling to old ways because they're familiar, even when better solutions exist. But change for the sake of itself can be equally destructive. The wisdom lies in knowing which traditions to preserve and which to evolve." "And in matters of the heart?" the Queen asked, her eyes knowing. "Should tradition or progress prevail?" The chamber fell silent. Elias realized with dawning shock that this was no casual visit. The Queen knew. Somehow, she knew about him and Solara. "I believe," he said carefully, "that the heart deserves consideration alongside duty, that happiness, while not the only factor, should not be dismissed as irrelevant. But I also understand that those of royal birth carry responsibilities that sometimes require personal sacrifice." Queen Lysandra studied him for a long moment. "My daughter will marry Prince Aldrich in 6 months. This has been decided. It is necessary for the kingdom." Elias felt his heart shatter, even as he nodded acceptance. "However," the Queen continued, and Elias's breath caught at that single word, "I have not forgotten what it means to marry for duty rather than love. I remember the loneliness of a union built on politics rather than affection. I want better for Solara, if better is possible." "Mother." Solara's voice cracked with hope and confusion. "I make no promises," Queen Lysandra said firmly, "but I will speak with the king. Perhaps there are alternatives we have not considered. Perhaps this scholar," she looked at Elias with something approaching approval, "might prove more valuable to the crown than we initially assumed." After the queen departed with Lady Mira, Solara and Elias stood frozen, afraid to believe what had just occurred. "Did your mother just—" Elias began. "I don't know." Solara's eyes shimmered with tears. "I didn't ask her to intervene. I swear I didn't. She must have noticed my unhappiness and investigated." "Do you think she can actually change anything?" "My mother has considerable influence. My father respects her counsel. But even if she tries, the political realities remain. The alliance with Valoran—" "Don't!" Elias pulled her into his arms, no longer caring about propriety. "Don't list all the reasons it's impossible. For tonight, let me hope." She buried her face against his chest. "I'm afraid to hope, afraid of how much it will hurt if this fails." "Then we'll face that pain together." He tilted her chin up, meeting her eyes. "Whatever happens, we face it together." Their kiss tasted of salt and desperation and stubborn, defiant hope.
Love's Triumph. Prince Aldrich of Valoran arrived on a crisp autumn morning, his entourage filling the castle courtyard with pageantry and foreign colors. Elias watched from the library window as Solara greeted the prince with perfect courtly grace, her smile polite but distant. Prince Aldrich was handsome enough, tall, well-built, with confident bearing, but Elias took petty satisfaction in noting that the prince's smile never reached his eyes when he looked at Solara. The following weeks were torture. Elias buried himself in research while Solara attended endless functions with her potential husband. They barely saw each other, managing only stolen glances across crowded rooms. The castle buzzed with gossip about the upcoming betrothal announcement scheduled for the Harvest Festival. Lord Dorian found Elias in the library late one evening, staring at nothing. "The Queen has been busy," his mentor said cryptically. Elias looked up. "What do you mean?" "I've been paying attention. She's had private meetings with several council members. She's reviewing agricultural yields, trade agreements, scholarly contributions to the crown." Dorian's weathered face creased with a slight smile. "She's building a case." "For what?" "For you, my boy. Or rather, for the principle that the kingdom's strength lies not just in military alliances, but in innovation, wisdom, and yes, happiness. She's a clever woman, Queen Lysandra. She's not attacking the betrothal directly. She's questioning whether Valoran is truly our best option." Hope flared in Elias's chest, dangerous and bright. "Has she succeeded?" "I don't know. But the fact that the king postponed the official announcement suggests she has at least made him reconsider." The Harvest Festival arrived with golden leaves and crisp air. The Great Hall overflowed with nobles, diplomats, and common folk alike celebrating the season's bounty. Elias stood near the back, uncomfortably dressed in borrowed formal attire, watching Solara sit beside Prince Aldrich at the high table. Lady Mira found him in the crowd. "She needs to see you there," she whispered urgently. "Whatever happens tonight, she needs to know you're present." "What's happening tonight? Just stay, please." The feast progressed with music and laughter. King Alastair rose to speak, calling for silence. "Tonight, we celebrate not just the harvest, but the future of our kingdom," his voice carrying through the hall. Elias's stomach dropped. This was it, the announcement of Solara's betrothal. "For too long," the king continued, "we have believed that strength comes only from military alliances and noble marriages. But my wise queen has reminded me that true strength comes from many sources." He gestured to Queen Lysandra, who smiled enigmatically.
innovation, learning, and yes, the happiness of those we love. Confused murmurs rippled to the crowd. Prince Aldric's expression darkened. Prince Aldric is indeed an honorable man and Valoran a valuable ally, but perhaps a military alliance need not be sealed with a marriage. Perhaps a trade agreement and mutual defense pact would serve us equally well, while allowing my daughter the freedom to choose her own path. The hall erupted in shocked whispers. Solara's face had gone pale, her eyes searching the crowd until she found Elias. "Your Majesty," Prince Aldric said stiffly, rising, "we had an understanding." "We had a discussion," King Alistair corrected gently. "No formal betrothal was ever sealed. You are a man of honor, Prince Aldric. Surely you would not wish to wed a woman whose heart lies elsewhere." The prince's jaw tightened, but he managed a curt nod. "I would not, Your Majesty, though I am disappointed. As am I, in different ways." The king turned to address the entire hall. "My daughter's marriage, when it comes, will be a matter of her own choosing, provided her choice serves the kingdom's interests as well as her own happiness. This is my decree." Solara stood, trembling. "Father, Have you made a choice, daughter?" the king asked, though his eyes held knowing warmth. "I have." Her voice rang clear through the suddenly silent hall. "If I may speak freely, you may." Solara descended from the high table, her gaze locked on Elias. The crowd parted as she walked through them, heads turning to follow her path. Elias's heart hammered as she approached, hardly daring to believe what was happening. She stopped before him, taking his hands in hers publicly, scandalously. "Master Elias Thornfield," she said loudly enough for all to hear, "is a man of learning, innovation, and integrity. His work has the potential to revolutionize our agricultural practices, strengthen our infrastructure, and advance our kingdom's knowledge. He sees possibilities where others see only limitations. He values wisdom over wealth, truth over titles." "Solara," Elias breathed, but she squeezed his hands, asking him silently to let her continue. "More than this, he sees me, truly sees me, not as a princess or a political tool, but as a person. He has captured my heart completely, and I believe I have captured his." "You have," Elias said hoarsely, no longer caring that hundreds of eyes watched them. "You have my heart, my soul, everything I am." Solara turned back to her father, still holding Elias's hands. "Father, I know he has no title, no lands, but he has something more valuable. A brilliant mind, a good heart, and the courage to stand here before the entire court. If you meant what you said about allowing me to choose, I choose him." The hall held its collective breath. King Alistair descended from his throne, approaching the couple with measured steps. Elias bowed deeply, his hands still intertwined with Solara's. "Elias Thornfield, do you love my daughter?" "With everything I am, Your Majesty." "And will you serve this kingdom as faithfully as you have served its pursuit of knowledge?" "I will, sire, on my life and honor." The king studied him for a long moment, then smiled, a genuine expression of warmth. "Then I grant you the title of royal scholar, with lands sufficient to support a household and the right to court my daughter properly. If after 1 year you both remain committed to this path, you will have my blessing to marry." Elias felt dizzy with shock and joy. "Your Majesty, I don't know what to say." "Say you'll make her happy," Queen Lysandra said, joining them with tears in her eyes. "That's all we ask." "I will spend every day trying," Elias promised fervently. Salama turned to him, her face radiant with joy and tears. "Is this real?" she whispered. "If it's a dream, I never want to wake." He cupped her face in his hands, aware of the crowd, but caring only for her. "I love you, Solara Valen. I will love you until my last breath and beyond." "And I love you," she said, laughing through her tears, "my unexpected scholar, who stumbled into my heart when I least expected it." Their kiss, their first public kiss, was met with thunderous applause and cheers that shook the rafters. When they finally broke apart, both laughing and crying, the entire hall celebrated with them. Lord Dorian approached, his weathered face wet with tears. "Well done, my boy. Well done." Lady Mira embraced Solara fiercely. "I told you it would work out," she whispered. "You did not," Solara laughed. "You were as terrified as I was." "True, but I'm excellent at pretending confidence." As the celebration continued around them, Elias and Solara slipped away to the garden where they'd first kissed, seeking a moment of quiet amid the chaos of their transformed lives. "I still can't believe it," Elias said, holding her close beneath the stars. "This morning I thought I'd lost you forever." "My mother is apparently more formidable than anyone realized. She spent weeks building support among the council, showing my father that strength comes in many forms. She even got Prince Aldric's own advisors to admit that a trade alliance would serve Valorin better than a reluctant royal marriage. Remind me to thank her profusely. You'll have plenty of opportunity. She's already planning our wedding, a year from now, as my father decreed, but she wants every detail perfect." "Elias, are you certain about this? Life as royal consort will be complicated. There will be politics, ceremonies, expectations." He silenced her with a kiss. "I'm certain of you. Everything else we'll figure out together." "Together," she repeated, the word sounding like a vow. Epilogue. 1 year later. The library had become their sanctuary, the place where their story began and where they retreated when royal life grew overwhelming. Elias continued his research, now with royal backing and resources, while Solara used her position to implement progressive policies that benefited the entire kingdom. Their wedding had been a celebration of both tradition and change, honoring customs while breaking others, much like their relationship itself. Lord Dorian had stood as Elias's witness, Lady Mira as Solara's, both beaming with pride. Now,